Hello, Michael. How's it
Hi,
going?
it's going well, man. Thank you for having me.
Michael is a SaaS founder from Jamaica who used MakerKit to build ChatFlow, a SaaS that helps companies automate support with AI. Hi, Michael. Do you want to talk a little bit about your background, maybe day-to-day job, and what you're up to now?
Okay, perfect. Thank you for that. So originally, well, I still am. I am an electrical engineer. Fortunate for me in my country, there's not a lot of electrical engineering jobs. So I ended up working in the business process outsourcing sector, which is really focused on call centers, taking support calls and managing customer journeys end to end. I did that for a better part of a decade, and I fell in love with, automating these processes. Few years went by and I didn't feel fulfilled, and seeing Maker Kits and the rise of building in public, I thought it was a great opportunity for me to use this product to really ship what I've loved, what I've learned to love over the last part of a decade. And it really allowed me to start really quick to get my product out there in front of customers to test and to build something that I'm familiar with, which is technical support or customer support, if you would want for a better word.
So it's my understanding that programming is not your day-to-day job, right?
So
It was not. So you did not have prior experience with Next.js, Supabase, React.
no, I didn't.
And did you learn that by yourself to build your SaaS?
I did. So when I originally quit my job, I spent the 3 months before I purchased a product. I did a lot of research. I planned how I was going to learn Next.js, React, and of course Supabase to get this done because it was a big commitment for me taking this next step. So I spent between September and December learning Next.js before I purchased your product. I mean, I did have a lot of questions, and you can see from my support tickets, but the support was phenomenal. It made it really easy for me to onboard myself and launch my first product. So I'm really grateful for that. Again, my day to day, I'm an electrical engineer. I didn't do no work in terms of React or anything of that kind. It was just building customer journeys from being in the BPO.
This is incredible to hear because you are the third guest on this podcast that did not have prior experience with web development or programming in general. And he managed to launch a SaaS that is profitable without external funding. And it's now your job, right? Because you're no longer employed.
I'm full time. It's been 15 months officially, and I'm really happy with the product, the progress we've made. And I'm happy to say that, in the next 3 months or so, we will be in the EU market. I'm really grateful for that experience. My goal was to, well, not to stay in the Caribbean, but to help Caribbean founders, have better customer support. I think one of the crucial things for us, Giancarlo, is that in my region, we spend 25 minutes waiting on hold for customer support. That's an incredible, horrible long time compared to the regions I've served by being in the BPO industry. And I've worked for big players, Cox, Verizon, Amazon, Google, and I run the Microsoft accounts and billing department at one point in time. So I know what a support time should be. Seeing that we're exporting that here and there's no opportunity to capitalize on that for either early stage companies or medium sized companies because of capital, I wanted to democratize that for those businesses.
The problem with the customer support sector and AI is that there's a ton more applications that do pretty much the same. And there's giants in the sector such as Intercom. So what was your thinking in terms of how do I differentiate? How do I beat bigger companies? How do I get customers when there's so much competition around? How did you do it?
That's a great question. There's three important things. First, I use Intercom from the day I got into the BPO, so I knew their product in and out. And the second thing is they weren't AI first when I started using them. And the big thing for us, we're AI first. And on top of that, there's a secret sauce that I like to tell when I've spoken to investors is that our secret sauce is that we're focused on language nuance. What do I mean by that? In my region specifically, Intercom is not well adapted. Why? Because there are over 4,000 different dialects in the Caribbean outside of our primary languages that Intercom does not, from an AI standpoint, doesn't account for because that's not their primary market. So we have found that as a niche for us where we fully adapted and fine-tuned our models to focus on those gaps in the language dialects that are here. And whereas Intercom focus on giving you predefined flows, we have tailored our solution to focus on having natural language throughput to solve that particular issue from a first contact resolution standpoint. And that's where our secret sauce comes in. And I must say, because of the work we've done in that 15 months, the local Development Bank of Jamaica has granted us a grant for a patent around our technology. So because of you, I'm able to go into that step. I've never thought that I would be able to qualify for a patent or something like that in the future. And because of MakerKit, I was able to take those necessary steps. I wouldn't want to say exploit a grant, not another grant, but a niche that is specifically tailored to my region. And I'm really proud of the work that my team has done because we've grown to around 5 now. So I'm grateful for that.
That's awesome to hear, honestly. I think a good point you raised is that when you use a SaaS starter kit like MakerKit or others, you have so much backbone already built that VCs or people who might fund you, they're like, oh, this guy's already done a lot of stuff, so they don't know that you actually bought something off the shelf.
Yes.
But that's a great point, because if you go there empty-handed, they're going to be like, okay, this is going to take 3-6 months maybe to add all the boilerplate needed to launch the app. But instead you go there and like, hey, look, I already have it done.
You're absolutely right. And in my region specifically, it's very hard to get VC funding. When I say extreme, getting a seed round here is like a Series A. I kid you not. It is the due diligence is literally like a Series A, and that's one of the biggest challenges for technical founders here. Being able to start something successfully, have a good product that's ready for market, being able to get your first set of customers to prove that it's solving a real problem. And MakerKit was able to allow me to do that in a very short space of time. I'd say 4 months, if the most, for me specifically at my level of understanding at the time.
So how do you think MakerKit helped you the most starting your SaaS? For example, did you find the patterns of the boilerplate useful for you to learn and to apply to your application, or other things that you think helped you?
Yeah, I think specifically learning about vector databases, everything about vector databases, I was able to learn and launch in because of MakerKit, which was very crucial to having an AI-based startup that's focused on customer support. So that was a crucial piece for me because initially when I started, I planned to build everything from scratch. I started it, I was showing my fiance everything, and there's like, this is going to take a lot of time to do everything from scratch, and you won't be able to get the traction you need as quickly as you want. So which is why I shifted to MakerKit because those things were already done. I'm grateful for the opportunity to start learning on my own, but MakerKit, based on the architecture of the entire thing, very modular, and it allowed me to learn what a vector database is, how it works specifically with Supabase, and I was able to get started really quickly. So for me, that was the selling point for me, getting started with those vector databases, specifically geared to what I wanted to achieve.
If I'm not wrong, you used one of the AI templates that allows you to start from an already pre-built code base. How much do you think the AI starter helped you ship faster compared to, say, a plain MakerKit build?
Trust me, it helped me 100%. If it wasn't for that, I'd probably have to start from scratch to go use the React components to build a chatbot. You had everything in place already. The easiest thing for me was to extend. It really gave me a good foundation to build the house up on, and I couldn't complain. The way everything was structured, the way the core components were structured, the UI components were structured. Yes, I was familiar with Fluid AI and Shotyan, but how everything was structured made it so easy for me to extend and build on top of that. To the point where I've added my own, as I mentioned before, my own sentiment analysis on AI-based conversations to really help businesses understand what your customer is saying, the impact of the conversation, really to extend everything that I've learned in MakerKit allowed me to build those features. Because it's just, how would I say, I wouldn't say repackage, but using all the knowledge that was clearly laid out to build on to create those new features, which was really phenomenal. To the point that I can add in my platform right now, live agents can take chats. So AI can now hand off to an actual agent to do support. And now we support multiple channels, and we're going into email in Q4 of this year because of what you've built. MakerKit has built for us. So I'm truly blown away by the support that I got and the ability to ship real quickly. That's for me the saving grace.
That's super good to hear, man. Thank you so much. So one of the hardest things for bootstrappers is to find customers, because especially as a developer, I know it's easy to close yourself in a basement and keep coding until it's perfect, until you have 200 features and you have more features than your competitors, because in your mind, that's what's going to make customers find you and buy from you. It doesn't work that way. Let's be honest about it. It does not. And when you're not VC funded, it's really hard to reach people, because you can, but it's a huge risk to start buying ads on Reddit, Facebook, Google. You cannot buy influencers on YouTube like a lot of VC funded companies do these days. So one of the big questions, I think, from beginners and people who want to build their first SaaS is, once I build my SaaS, how do I find my first customers? So how did you do?
Great questions. I think the starting point was for me two things. One, I saw a thread in the MakerKit support group talking about, the power of cold emails or cold LinkedIn messages. So reading that thread really opened my eyes to learning about, as you mentioned, that as an engineer, I want to be in a silo and go work until the product is perfect. But I realized I had to put myself out there. So the second piece was for me to start looking at what my ideal customer profile is. And for me, that was the medium to large enterprises. And I know two important things. Here in my country, customer support is the worst for government-backed entities and financial institutions. So I started cold emailing the decision makers from those entities. And my first enterprise, again, the first contract I signed was an enterprise customer, believe you not. So the first enterprise customer was the ministry that manages spectrum licensing for telecommunications companies. So I realized that they were complaining, some of their engineers were complaining about how hard it is to onboard customers to do what they call band planning. So I reached out to their managing director and say, hey, I have a product. This is what we do. We help, from a technical support standpoint. Maybe there's some synergies. I got an email response, and then I booked my first demo. That was April 2024. Did the demo with them. I had a follow-up meeting, and then in October, that's a very long time because it's a government entity to sign a contract. I got my first signed contract just by doing a LinkedIn cold email and looking on forums about problems customers were having with support. So that's how I landed my first customer. And I kept doing that, and that's how it built up traction. And I can happily say there are over 156 organizations on ChatFlow right now that are using our product actively on a day-to-day basis. No paid marketing, and I'm fully bootstrapped up to this point. Again, I do need to change how I acquire customers, but that's been working for the last few months. So I'm going to keep at it for now, but I do need to change my strategy at some point.
It does sound like niching down to a specific area, which is underserved. And it has some particular things like, as you mentioned, over 4,000 languages.
Yeah.
And you found these little details and you understood that there was a void in the market that you could fill. What would be your advice, for example, to other customers who want to build something in a very crowded market like AI support to beat bigger companies or similar companies? How do you niche down to find your market?
Great question. I think the best way, and this is what I would do if I had to start with Make a Kit all over again, I would go to look at those support forums and look at where the support requests are not being solved. And then if there's a big enough cry out in that particular area, that's where I would start building from. The product doesn't need to be perfect. It needs to give an end result that solves that particular problem from a support standpoint. So that's what I would do. I'd go to those forums, look at what customers are complaining about that's not being solved, it's not being addressed, they're getting generic responses on, and then solve that problem first, and then build the other things on top of that, which is what I did. Because again, going back to my point, right now customers are waiting 25 minutes on hold. Businesses that use my product, they don't have to wait. They can get that support query responded to or answered in a very timely manner, instantly if you would want. We call it now zero friction customer support. Again, for me, is to mimic that across the other digital channels as we plan to scale. As I said to you, we're going into that email space now because we realize the same BPOs that I work for are losing contracts because they can't do multilingual support, which we now support. And of course, they want email support as well. So that's why I'm going into that venture on the enterprise side of the business at this point. So it's really about listening to what persons are complaining about and see if best you can provide a solution. Don't try to do everything at once. Pick one avenue, as we've spoken about, that you can really drive impact home. And even if it's 10 customers that really love your product, it's far better than 1,000 that really like it, and then you have churn in the long run. That's the best advice I got.
I think that's great advice.
Thank you.
Because many indie hackers get into the game, they build something, but they have no idea how to distribute it. And I count myself as one of them, maybe, because maybe before launching MakerKit, I didn't really have a following, and it was hard for me to distribute right away, which is why one of the things I did is to start writing content for SEO 1 year before I launched, just for fun, just to see where it went. And then 1 year later, SEO was my main channel for getting new customers. Do you have other channels that you are using or that you think you will be using in the future?
Yeah, definitely SEO is going to be the big option for me, and being AI SEO friendly as well. So when people do AI searches, they find my product in those searches as well. So that's one of the challenges that I'm going to be targeting. I'm actually in the process of onboarding somebody to do our marketing right now, and I'm a big stapler for getting the people that can do things really well for me at this point. I'm not a marketer. Yes, I can figure out the numbers, but I want to have the best team on board to help me. Yes, we're a small team, but I need to figure out going into those different channels. But specifically for my region, though, and I can say a lot of the new customer acquisitions is through word of mouth at this point. Yeah, there's a lot of digital stuff going on, but still people here buy based on good recommendation. And that's how I've been acquiring those other customers so far. So I'm going to try my very best to optimize for that.
I think it's one more reason to niche down also geographically, because it looks like your clients kind of know each other. They probably live in the same place or they do business together in the same
Yep.
region.
Yep.
And that's why word of mouth is such a powerful strategy, a powerful channel for you right now, right?
Definitely.
That's incredible. I think word of mouth helped MakerKit also a little bit. People recommend it on socials such as
Yes. On
Reddit,
Twitter.
Twitter. I'm not really active on socials, but thankfully a lot of people have done the job for me these days, except for Reddit, because every time someone mentions it, people just don't vote them.
Yeah. I saw that as well.
You saw that. Yeah, I don't know why.
That's weird.
Think it's because programmers in general are a little bit averse to SaaS starter kits and boilerplates that are paid. And there's some people that say that AI is going to build it in half an hour with a bunch of prompts. And there are others who say they're going to build it in a weekend. They're either super programmers or they're lying, because I've been building a MakerKit for 3 years and there's always little adjustments and little bugs that people eventually find, because there's a ton of edge cases that you have to sort out, right?
I agree.
And I feel like this is one of the reasons why so many of my customers who are not developers, not programmers, have launched such successful products like yours. The previous guests I've had on the podcast went on to have some very successful businesses, and they're also not programmers. And it feels like programmers focus too much on the technicalities, focus too much on good code and clean code. How do I scale when you have not even 5 users? While people like you or marketers and product people, they just focus on the customer, on the need, and on the market. And like you now, a real business with employees, right?
Yep.
How long did you get from buying MakerKit to the first customer?
Yeah, so I bought MakerKit December 2023. My first paid customer was onboarded in October after they've submitted their paid request. So they paid through the whole Stripe portal, and then they were onboarded within 7 days. Again, the onboarding process in MakerKit that you have by default is pretty straightforward. So that was easy for them. Again, this is a government entity. They were able to onboard in that short time. So again, of course, there are other things that I've built upon in terms of documentations that they would need to have, and of course set roles, but it was done within a week. So that's how easy MakerKit made that process. Again, onboarding being very modular, and the recent updates of the onboarding forms that you guys did is going to allow me to change some things in my onboarding process. Let me give you an example. So that was around 6 months because of the time it took for them to sign the contract. Not because of onboarding, but because of from demo to sign contract, 6 months. So my sales cycle on the enterprise side is about 4 to 6 months now. Self-serve customers can be done within a day. I want to move that free trial from 30 days to 14 or 15 days. I'm still testing that, but then I'll have a better understanding of what the off-the-shelf customers or the lower tier customers get a feel for versus the enterprise guys who may want a little bit more customization, kind of a vibe. So yeah.
There's many customers in MakerKit that perhaps are struggling to launch for perhaps technical reasons, or perhaps because they are not satisfied enough with the product. What would be your advice to members of the community who want to launch their SaaS and, like you, make it their own job?
Great question. I think as we start this conversation, don't be in that silo. Put yourself out there, ask the questions. There are many times I've reached out to ask you questions, Jane Carl. I've thought about it. Am I going to look stupid right now? Well, I still ask the questions after 5 hours. And, sometimes it's something pretty simple that I missed and you'd point out. And I get it right there. I remember, for instance, you had the update to show when there's new updates in progress. And I reached out to you. I mean, we've launched that feature for quite some time. And it took me a while to figure out that I need this because I'm pushing updates while customers are still in production. But before I asked you, it was something pretty simple, and you pointed that out quickly. I think that you have a great support structure right now. I'm sure you're going to evolve more over time, which is fine for me because progress is important. But I think putting yourself out there and asking those tough questions, even if you don't know, the community is there to support you. I can see them every single day responding to queries, but for me, I think that's the most important thing. Ask the questions that you think are stupid, and you may be just surprised that it's not stupid. Somebody else is having that problem and afraid to ask as well. Again, most of us right now aren't developers, so I think we need to think outside the box. Accept that I'm not a developer. I'm the owner of an indie SaaS right now, or a micro SaaS, if you would. But to get to the next step, you have to ask those questions, no matter how ridiculous you think it sounds. That's why the community exists.
So do you think that MakerKit support was important for you to ship your SaaS? Let's assume you didn't use MakerKit and you used an open source kit, for example. How would you have done it?
It'd be a lot more difficult without the community, to be honest with you. I can't lie. The threads that you guys have put in place to answer questions so we can see historical stuff, really phenomenal stuff. I think if I'm just going to say this candidly, if others follow that same path, maybe they'd have better traction or they'd have a better community. I can't say it enough. The MakerKit community is one of the best I've been in, and it's phenomenal in terms of the historical stuff that, especially from I'm on the V1 kits. I'm planning to upgrade to the Turbo. It's been, how should I put this now, a dying cry for my team and I to move over to it, but we do plan to do that. But we fell in love with V1. We're probably V1 ravers at this point. But again, for us, the community has been a staple of getting us over any humps or hurdles that we've had. And again, they've been minor, if I'd say that.
Thank you.
Yep,
V1 is a little bit simpler, I think, than V2.
I agreed.
Yes, V2 was the culmination of a lot of learnings from me, but it's probably meant for larger SaaS applications, probably larger companies, or probably where web development is going in the next 2 to 5 years. So it's a little bit forward thinking because it uses a monorepo and it uses basically every feature is a factory. Basically, there's no implementation unless there's an abstraction, which makes it easy to switch stuff. V1 instead was a little bit simpler because back in the day, I was like, I want anybody to be able to use this.
Yeah.
Whether they're beginners or whether they're senior engineers, I want everybody to use it. However, some people started pointing out some issues with it, like how do I change Stripe with something else? How do I change Sentry with another tool? And that's why V2 happened, because I was like, if I can abstract all these things, perhaps it's going to be the perfect code base. And in a way, I think I succeeded with it. It is a very nice code base, very clean, that I would use for anything. However, some people obviously might find it a little bit confusing, especially those who haven't worked in programming environments where there's some abstraction. And one of the questions I'd love to ask you is, have you had a moment where you were like, oh no, and that could be anything technically, like an issue that you thought you couldn't solve and then you solved?
You see, right now with the addition of Cursor and OpenAI Codex, I don't think I've had those moments. There probably will be in the future when I go and try to bridge between that email SaaS that I've built and that I'm trying to, well, it's not merge with MakerKit, but make it an extension of what we do. I think I may run into that challenge there. Knock on wood that it's not anytime soon, but I'm preparing my mind mentally for that. So again, as I said, my entire goal with MakerKit at this point is to make sure that digital customer support can be done from that V1 kit. And I'm going to do my very best to optimize, see how best we can manage. If there comes a point where we have to move off Vercel and go to AWS, I'm sure MakerKit does support that, which I saw from the get-go. So I think it's future-proof enough, and I'm keeping my fingers crossed that I don't don't have that moment anytime soon. But if it happens, I'm definitely going to share the learnings with you and the community. I think that's important.
It's quite incredible that so far in your journey and you haven't had one of these moments. Because I don't know, I can think of a few,
Really?
both with MakerKit and others.
Wow.
Yeah, a developer's journey is packed with these moments, I think, and I think as SaaS founders as well. You mentioned that you are currently using AI to write code. How much do you think it's helping you? And do you think that having a good code base like MakerKit help AI?
Yeah, definitely. The context is what's really, really important. And the documentation that you provide, very clear, very detailed, very structured. And it really helps us in terms of adding new features to the current code base. So for instance, we would design that sentiment analysis section of our program. We wanted to make sure that it matches the look and feel of everything and not felt out of place. So because of the context and structures and how the components are done, we're able to create that pretty quickly. So for us, it really helped us to ship new features and test them very quickly because of the context and structure and not trying to redesign or reinvent the wheel if you had. So for us, that's been, easier for us to ship new things even quicker than we were before when we got started. So yeah, that's a good thing.
Yeah, I noticed that AI can do so much better when it has a code base with existing patterns because it can copy them and you can make sure that all the code that AI is writing is based on the existing patterns of the code base. And when you start from scratch with AI is usually using a ton of patterns. You cannot really control that unless you're very specific in your prompts. And what I found is that thanks to an already existing code base like MakerKit, you can say, hey, get these files as context and I want you to build it in the exact same way. And using Cursor or using Cloud Code, I found that sometimes my code and the AI's code, you cannot distinguish them, which is
Yes.
great. Who wrote this, Django or AI? And that's why one of my suggestions is to people use AI sparingly while you're building the foundations. And after building the foundations, you can use AI, you can vibe code it because AI has so much context already that it can do so much better when it generates code. For example, I am going to release my new product hopefully next month, Super Mode. I couldn't have done it without AI in such a short time. And the way I use the AI is like I first built initial features myself. I build the patterns. I wrote code the way I think it should be written. And then after that, I gave context with AI and I'm like, can you now build these features in kind of the exact same way using the exact same patterns that I've done for this feature? And that's how AI was able to really mimic my code in a way that it's almost indistinguishable from mine,
Yep.
which is kind of amazing.
Yeah.
And
Phenomenal.
it's phenomenal. Yeah. Thinking about AI a little bit, since you are an operator using AI to automate a profession,
Yeah.
what do you think is going to happen in the next few years? Is AI going to augment our profession while our jobs become a little bit harder? Or do you think that AI could cause job losses because it can basically replace us in many ways now?
That's a very interesting question. I'm always contrarian when it comes on to this question. I honestly believe it's always going to be an augmenter. There will be some concerns around productivity and capacity where there may be less need for some persons within a particular role. I can see that happening because it's happening now. But at the highest level, it should always be, and I think should always be a tool to augment current workflows and staff to ensure that there is productivity. So again, just like myself, that was in a role, if my role is not available anymore, I'm going to use AI to create something that I can generate an income from, which is what I'm doing. So I think that's the caveat persons should look at. And I'm using myself as that example. I didn't just leave my job because of productivity. I just wanted to do something a little bit differently amongst the passions that I already have. And AI played a role in ensuring I could launch my product quickly and then, of course, serve my end users because that's what I'm built on or built to do. And then here's the other caveat to that. the fact that the companies that I'm serving don't have the capital to hire human beings to do the job anyway. So I'm now giving them the capacity to do something that they were struggling with because of AI. So that's the contrarianism that I use to not really justify, but look at the problem I'm solving.
Yeah, I think in your case, you're absolutely giving companies the tools to do something that before they couldn't do because they didn't have enough capital to hire humans. Yeah, that's a great point. Perfect. I think we are at the end. I took enough of your time.
No worries.
Thank
It's a
you so
pleasure.
much, Michael, for joining the podcast. I think that there's a lot to learn from you and from your journey in the way you built a tool in such a crowded space and in a region that perhaps doesn't have the same capital as other richer regions, but you were able to insert yourself and fill a void in the market that was not fulfilled yet. And also the fact that you were not a programmer and you were able to ship a SaaS by yourself pretty much.
Yeah.
And then you hired other people.
Correct.
That's amazing.
Yeah. I know. I still can't believe it myself. I'm still shocked. I have to pinch myself sometimes to think, am I really a SaaS founder? Did I really do this? It feels surreal sometimes.
That's amazing to hear from me because, when I started, I didn't think about this aspect. Like, am I going to change lives with my tools?
There
And
you go.
now I have proof that it happened. So thank you so much for this. Thank you.
No problem. Thank you so much for having me. It was a pleasure.
Best of luck with ChatFlow and speak in Discord.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Bye.